we're also waiting for the lockdown, but I see that in all our countries, it is for different times. Yes, we have the lockdown till April 24th, I guess.
Yeah, the same in Poland, but there are voices that the peak in the COVID disease will be in between of April and May. So there are voices also that the lockdown will be extended until mid-May or end of May, even some, you know, and it's going to be, it will, in my point of view, have a significant impact on the economy, on the overall economy, not only on the real estate, but on every single segment of the economy.
Yeah, I see. What are the predictions as to the lockdown? Will it be continued, or it will be just till the end of April?
Well, if in Poland at least, if the numbers of the positive tests are growing, and then the numbers of deaths are growing, and they are at the moment, I'm not sure whether the government will be willing to close the lockdown, to end the lockdown. So we will see how the figure is going to look like.
I see. In our country, it's the same. It's all the same for every country right now. We're just
Hello, can somebody hear me?
Sure, we hear everybody.
Oh.
Hi, Anton.
Okay,
yes.
very good.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah.
Yes.
How are you doing? Sorry for interrupting. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Okay, we are just talking before we getting more people, because we planned it on start at 11. So we're just checking our video.
Okay,
checking
very
our
good. Very good. Okay.
Nice to see you. And this is a good.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Yeah.
To meet some.
It's my pleasure. So how are you doing these days?
In Zoom. We are doing all our stuff in Zoom.
You are doing all your stuff in Zoom? Okay. Well, you know, I couldn't manage not to visit my office. So my people don't see it too much, but I'm still in office. Fortunately, it's located only, let's say, 5 minutes walk from my home. So in this respect, that's okay.
All the construction works are going on in your country, yes?
Yes, they do. But most of the developers said that they proceed with the existing buildings, but they don't start with a new one.
With a new one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we will have only 1 minute before the beginning, and we have almost all of our speakers ready with turning video, with microphones, and ready to talk with our audience as to the our assumptions, what is going on the market, and maybe some predictions, if we are very if anyone can do this, some predictions, because right now it's like for me it's like impossible thing to predict anything in such situation. We have only 5 main questions as to the market and as to this discussion. We will start with some introductions from each of our speakers, with short brief introductions of what your company is doing and in which country. And as our conference is recording, so we will start on time, and we will start with introduction, and then we will go to our questions. And we have 2 polls to all our participants, and I will see how many people will participate. And when we will have most of them, I will turn some polls to ask our questions as to the segments of the market and as to some predictions as well. And we will continue with, after the introduction, we will start with the current situation vision on each market, what's going on each market, and then we will go to the maybe some discussion of strategies of different markets. How does the government helps the business to survive this quarantine? How the business is doing in this quarantine? Because in all our countries, very similar problems and very similar way out. So let's start with some introductions. I will just moderate this meeting. I'm from Ukrainian Real Estate Club. And this was our idea to get different people from different countries just to see what's going on. And just maybe to feel some relief that we are not only one who are suffering from this quarantine. Okay, let's start. Volodymyr, I see you first in my life, so probably we'll start with you.
Hello to everybody. My name is Vladimir Veligorsky. I'm co-founder and CEO in the company M2 Poland, Square Meter Poland. We are the biggest portal web service of Polish real estate on the primary market to the foreigners, to the people from Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia.
And how do you feel the situation in your business, exactly in your business? Do you feel that people just stop doing any actions or just watching and taking their time?
Now we can see lower, sorry, I'm just a little bit nervous. We see a lower online requests and calls because investment in the international property is it's more quiet now on the market. So now it's finding the international property is on pause now. I think till the end of quarantine, it will be on pause.
Because the borders are closed and
yes,
we don't know when they will be opened. Okay.
Yes.
Anton, what about you? What about Estonia?
Hello. Yes, my name is Anton Nikitin. I'm founder and CEO of a group of companies, EcoAdvice. We deal with construction, with property development in Estonia, and also offer brokerage services and deal with consultations in construction, including construction supervision, energy efficiency. So in general, we are presented as in development, as in real estate, as in construction, but we don't construct ourselves. Yeah. So well, that's all about introduction. In general, Estonia situation is how to say. It's rather calm, you know, and what can you do? We have fastened our seat belts and enjoying the ride.
No panic and no stress, yes?
Well, there is stress, but mostly in commercial real estate. In residential, it's a little bit more in lease, because short-term lease, as I understand, it's not business anymore, at least for next, let's say 3-4 months, to my mind. And many apartments from short-term lease, I mean, Booking and Airbnb went to long-term, and they say up to 25%. And the rent prices went down for 20%.
Not so big changes. Just
well, it depends
to other countries.
Yeah, but it depends on if you rent out or you are a tenant, you know. So in this respect, it's not exactly good business right now. Yeah.
Okay, I can see that we have another speaker joining us. And let's continue with introduction of our speakers. Craig Smith is our partner, and Craig is, I don't know how you do it, how you manage it to do so many online conferences on different markets, on Hungarian, Romanian, Polish, in different kinds of, in different segments of real estate. So I invited Craig to share the experience of all his partners in different markets.
Hi, Olga. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. Good to see that you're all alive and healthy. You know, the situation is obviously pretty scary, I think, for most, if not everybody. Yeah, I mean, it's a mess. I mean, I think for commercial real estate, for everybody, you know, it's just, you know, pretty much a disaster. You've got, you know, some e-commerce companies, the big players, you know, they're making a killing. I was talking with our contacts at Amazon, and this is the best sales they've ever done. And I'm sure some of the other big ones are doing extremely well. The construction companies at the moment, some are doing better than others, but, you know, projects seem to be going forward around the region at the moment. The construction hasn't stopped. You know, obviously the hotel business is wiped out for the moment. I mean, they're just shattered. And I think most countries, I think in most countries, it's all the hotels are closed. If they're not, there's no one staying there because there's no way of getting to the hotels. You know, except for what I see in Belarus, it seems like everything's fine there. Only one death, so I guess I'm okay. According to Lukashenko, it's just saunas and lots of vodka, but the rest of the world seems to be having a harder time with it. Shopping centers, of course, another disaster, and you know, for most retailers, I would say they were probably already, you know, they were already having trouble, and I would say now most of them are, even if they're not filed bankruptcy yet, I'm sure a lot of them are in deep trouble, even if they don't have to pay the rent. You know, we're you know, it's strange. Our business, even our business, has actually become illegal. We can't have events over 2 people in Poland. So you know, even, you know, funny. I never thought I would be in a business that was actually declared an illegal business. But what we're doing of traditional events, you know, was made illegal about a month ago, I guess. So yeah, so we just moved everything online, and you know, we're doing the conferences online, and we do 2 a week. We do 2 of these kind of events a week. We just pick 2 days. We do them Tuesday, Thursday at 11 o'clock CET time. So of course you're all welcome to join, and we're usually always covering commercial real estate, just different angles. So, but yeah, good to see you guys. And you know, it's like the only time I get to talk to too many people, except for the few I make come to our office.
Mateusz, please join us.
Hello, I'm Mateusz Stachewicz, representing the Polish Association of Developers. We are associating more than 200 of real estate developers coming from every branch that is in Poland, for example, housing sector, retail sector, hotel, and so on and so on. And according to the questionnaire conducted among our developers in the second half of March, we can see that developers are acting quite normally when it comes to Poland and construction sector. We can see that more than 70% of our construction sites is working normally as before quarantine. And nowadays, in the first 2 weeks of April, it's getting even more. We can see that we have less percents of clients when it comes to sales and sales office. More than 60% of our respondents decided to close their sales offices. But what is optimistic, because as you said at the beginning, we should be a little bit positive today. We can see that more than 84% of developers decided to move their sales to work remotely, and we can see that it's getting even better and better because we are getting used to the new situation. Thanks.
Okay, we are going to next speaker. Lika, please join us. Unmute your microphone.
Hello, everybody. Olga, thank you again for inviting Property Georgia and FIAPC Georgia on this interesting conference. Happy to see you all. healthy and safe. As you mentioned, Olga, the situation is everywhere the same. So we all are facing big challenges in times of coronavirus. Regarding Georgia, Georgia was among the first European countries to take quite effective measures towards coronavirus impact softening. So even health and medical direction was managed quite well, and the economy actually manifested quite good habits of resilience. Regarding subsectors of real estate, how they are affected, till now, despite the fact that state of emergency was declared, construction projects, mostly strategic construction projects, are still ongoing. Also, some production factories are working, and transportation of cargo was not restricted. Even though this situation is happening and taking place, of course, as many countries, our tourism has affected dramatically, and as you know, Olga, Georgia's strategic direction is tourism, and the tourism is driver of real estate, so there is very straightforward correlation between tourism and real estate sectors. In short-term period, the economic lockdown and the tourism lockdown declined, and of course declined transactions of real estate. Especially, we have the latest information from Colliers International Georgia. Compared to first half of March, in second half of March, residential real estate transactions have decreased by 38%, and mostly it happens in areas where was high demand. Also, we face some challenges in commercial real estate. Mostly short-term leases have been affected, and the main concern developers and real estate landlords are facing today is liquidity problem, and also they are concerned for maintaining value of their property and their real estate assets. So this is a very brief overview of Georgian real estate market, and the main challenge is that it's affecting both parts of the economy, supply chains and demand as well. So the main question and the main concern from side of real estate players is when COVID and this economic lockdown will be finished. It will define further development of this sector. It's quite complicated and quite unclear to do some assumptions, clear assumptions, before we don't know when this will be finished.
Thank you, Lika. And we are moving to our next speaker, Andrzej Alejnik from Homesters.
Yes.
Please join us and share your situation in your companies. Sure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrzej. I'm a founder of a real estate technology company called Homesters. What we do is digital project marketing platforms. We build them and we operate them in multiple markets. So basically help residential developers move their inventory faster. The markets we're operating is Kazakhstan, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, and in Serbia through partners. And in Kazakhstan, it's one of our biggest markets. So Kazakhstan is always a very interesting market. There's a couple of things colliding there within March. So first they had holidays for the first week, which is of course always a slowdown. And then when they came out of the holidays, there's two factors, of course, COVID and the oil wars. Which drove the oil prices down, and Kazakhstan is heavily reliant on that, which led to a devaluation of the currency. So a super interesting, anomaly, because the devaluation drove a spike in interest in real estate. When currency devalues, people tend to migrate toward new developments real fast to invest their money. And before it devalues, at the same time, the COVID held back the opportunity to monetize that demand. So we see a huge spike of demand which cannot be realized at the same time because people physically cannot make those purchases, right? And now the question to me is, you know, this is a pulling rubber thing, right? There's a huge demand building up, and then this can't realize it. The question is whether the rubber is going to break. So is the quarantine going to be long enough to scare people out of their decision to purchase now, or is it going to stabilize? But so far the developers are working remotely. They're taking bookings. The sector is very vibrant as for now, and the developers are hoping that the quarantine will be over soon, so not making any radical decisions just yet. So very interesting situation to begin with.
Thank you. We have all of our speakers introducing themselves, and we have speakers from, as you see, from different countries, and but with the same problem. So let us just sum up the main problems of the market.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we forget about Michal.
Oh, Michal, I just haven't seen him turning his video.
Here?
Yes.
Michal.
Hello. Sorry.
Sorry,
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning to all of you. My name is Michał Pochodoła. I'm a Polish lawyer. Thank you very much for the introduction and for organizing this event. Happy to meet you all. Well, the short introduction about my visions and how it looks like in Poland. You know, the lockdown is destroying us a little bit physically and emotionally as well. So we are waiting for the finish of the lockdown. It has a significant impact on every single sector of the economy, including real estate. And there are some differences between housing, between commercial, and between hotels, etc., but it has a significant impact on every single angle of the economy. I would like to talk a little bit later about what the Polish government is doing legally in terms of introducing aid legislation. So I'm happy to share the comments on the Polish perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michal. And as I understand, please, our speakers, just share the brief information. All construction sites are working. All constructions that already have been started before the quarantine is under construction.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that. You know, some of them, if I was traveling to the office for the last 3 weeks, and I was looking at the construction sites. Not all of them are working. The significant impact was that, you know, as you may know, in Poland, there are a significant number of Ukrainians working in the construction sector. 2 weeks ago, when President Zelensky announced the so-called comeback of the closure of the borders, about 20% of the workers from the construction sector came back to Ukraine. It had a significant impact on the construction companies. And this was presented in articles and interviews in media, that not only it had impact on the hotel sector, but it has had impact on the construction sector itself. If you look at Warsaw, I'm looking at Warsaw for the moment. It's some of the construction sites are working, but some of them are closed. So it's I can't tell you what the percentage is, but not all of them are working on the, let's say, 100% on full force.
I see.
We have several construction sites when they fasten the works to finish the works as quickly as possible to exit from the project, because they have concluded already preliminary agreements to sell the apartments, etc. And they want to finish the project as soon as possible. So in one project, for example, I know they are 3 months ahead. And in other bigger projects, they have this kind of plans as well.
Andrzej, and what about Kazakhstan? Are they still working on constructions?
Yes, construction is ongoing so far. It's not been forbidden, although strict rules are in place. And again, only the sales office is moved basically online, and the back office operations have moved into remote working for most developers, right? For most developers, especially those with liquidity, of course, those who don't have the needed liquidity, you know, they were in trouble either way, right? It's just made it more visible. But the industry seems to be working close to normal in that way.
Mateusz, please also join us with the view of 200 members of your association. That they continue?
So according to data collected among our developers, we can see that it was in the second half of March, as I said, 91% of construction is being continued so far, but we can see, as Vladimir said in the beginning, that one among our problems are, for example, a lack of workers, for example, from Ukraine. So we had some conversations also with banks, and we can see that it could be some more problems with starting new investments because of hard conditions of giving loans from banks. So constructions are being continued, but it could be problem with new constructions.
Thank you. And in Ukraine, about 80% of construction sites are open. And in regions, there are some cities with the main spread of coronavirus. In the Chernivtsi region, they are closing their construction sites. And but some of them of Ukrainian construction companies, they are closed because the lack of workers from regions, because we have closed all the transportation between different regions. So some just workers, they didn't just leave Poland. Some Ukrainian workers just leave main cities to smaller cities when they are to go home.
Generally, I think I can add something about the European Union, because PZFD is also associated in Build Europe, representing 13 countries of European Union. And we can see that in every country, constructions are being continued. Even in Spain, where the situation is the most dramatic, we can see that constructions are working. They introduced some safe obligations, for example, as working in shifts or so on and so on. But almost every country is being continued.
You know, as we are very close connected to Finland, it's interesting that something like in better times, up to 50,000 people from Estonia worked in Finland. And they started to travel on Monday and came back to Estonia on Friday. Because it takes only 2 hours by ferry to get to Finland. And a lot of people were working in construction area. And when this virus activity started, Finnish government said this way that if you come to Finland, you can stay there and work, but you cannot leave. In this, and many, up to 20,000 of Estonian construction workers went to Finland and stayed there. So for me, it seems that it was very interesting step by the Finland to get 20,000 people, very active people, willing to work, you know, bearing in mind that the Finnish population is aging, you know.
Regarding Georgia,
we can continue.
You can, thank you. Regarding Georgia, as I mentioned, strategic infrastructure projects are ongoing. Regarding private sector, FIAPTI Georgia has members, leading development companies, construction companies, as well as Property Georgia. And what feedback we have from them is that most largest companies that had ongoing projects and their pipeline, strict pipeline, they are maintaining their work, maintaining, and they are complying to new procedures that was issued by Minister of Economy, safety procedures. If they comply with these procedures and have all the norms of health and safety for the employees, they can continue working. these works are under very strict regulation and monitoring. So we can say that 50-50, so 50% of the sector construction companies are continuing their works.
Thank you, Lika. Thank you. And we are moving to our next question. Which real estate segment will be more successful, will survive better rather than others? Because when we just started about situation, we already talked about which segments already influenced the lockdown mostly. But what are your predictions as to the segments that will be in the better position? Please name the segment which is suffering less, and please name the segment which will be the most suffering segment. In your country, of course, because I see that in Georgia you have touristic.
Yes, Olga, thank you very much. Very interesting question. As I mentioned, tourism is strategic sector for Georgia, and it has a great share in gross domestic product. As the whole world, Georgia was negatively impacted in terms of tourism, and as tourism is driver of real estate, hospitality sector, unfortunately, restaurants, hotels have hardly affected due to this. Most of them do not operate for now, and it's unpredictable when they will renew their activities. So landlords of hospitality properties have suffered a lot, as well as restaurants, but they have more flexibility. They have switched to online services, and it softens their situation. Also, hospitality and tourism was driving residential sector, because here in Georgia in last years we have attracted a lot of international investors due to quite fundamental attractive factors for investing in residential real estate. We had many international buyers. Of course, today they have stopped their decision making due to economic lockdown, and it has affected residential sectors. So today the operations and transactions in this direction are cancelled because they cannot rent it out or use for investment purposes, and we see that Airbnb sector has affected due to this situation negatively as well. Regarding the situation in primary homes residential market, we had very interesting online conference a couple of days ago with world president of International Real Estate Federation, FIAPTI, and Mr. Walid Moussa mentioned, and I fully agree, that home is very precious asset today, and is castle for us for safety. We assume that demand for primary homes will keep going, but there will emerge demand for affordable houses. So governments and private sectors, probably worldwide, will pay attention to this new segment to develop affordable houses, and as economic lockdown has impact on the economic situation of citizens, and they will not afford to buy luxury homes anymore. But this situation also is what is happening in Georgia, is that people think to go back to villages and to buy some new lands in new lands. So urbanization maybe will move to not capital cities, but to suburbs and other regions of the country. This is what we see now. Regarding retail sector, as I mentioned, commercial properties, shopping centers have suffered a lot. They face liquidity problems. There is a really big challenge with leasing contracts. Short-term contracts are terminated. There are negotiations on postponing the payments. Regarding long-term contracts, in case of offices and commercial real estate properties, they stay in force, but there are again negotiations about pricing. And in future, as Corona reality showed us, we started to work from homes. So remote and distance working, we have tested home remote and distance working, and maybe in future companies will compromise their culture and their working culture and will move and switch to partially to remote working culture that will change demand for traditional office centers. So as online sales grow and demand grows in this direction, there is assumption that industrial real estate property will evolve and accelerate. So demand for logistics centers will be increased. But the main recommendation we received from FIAPCI president, and I fully agree, is to adapt. The companies that will adapt will survive. So adaptation is the best strategy we can apply today. And maybe we will try to use this situation, this breakdown, to break through to new opportunities.
Thank you, Lika. Andrzej, would you? Yes,
I'll agree. I'll be real quick. I think most suffering, there is no doubt that it's going to be commercial, because of the growth of the online e-commerce. That's going to hurt, of course, the shopping malls and storefronts. It's going to, I think, reduce the foothold there. The office space, I think the biggest outcome of this is that I have yet to speak to a business owner who wouldn't say, you know what, I think our office is too big. It's like, this is way too big of a cost. We overestimated the value of it, the representative value of it. It's just, I don't think we can live without one, but definitely we're going to relook on how we use it and what's the size of it. And I don't think that's going to go back. And including me, I'm like completely thinking outside of the box of like, why am I paying that money for again, right? The added value to the business is very limited, so it seems. On the winning side, of course, on the short term, everybody's going to be hurting. I think everybody will be hurting real bad for, X amount of months, right? There's no question about it. But the quickest one to come back, I think, is going to be new developments, residential real developments, because the developers are quickest to come out of shell shock and adjust their pricing, which people on the resale market usually cannot do. Right, it's a mental blockage for a while before you lower your prices to the new reality. And the other thing is I also agree with Lika here, is the behavioral change. I haven't spent this much time in my apartment in ever, right? So the importance of actually having a home which has infrastructure, has stores, has schools, the little things start annoying you. I think people will be looking forward to improve their way of living, because they just understand that it might come a time, and in the future we might be forced to do this over and over and over again, right? So this is, to me, also a lasting behavioral change which I foresee. So I think residential property developers will come out of this. If they survive, they're going to come out the strongest and faster.
Craig, you talked about Amazon and the growing e-commerce. So probably the warehouses and industrial development will be the most successful. Do you agree with me, or you have another, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, we've done, even just a couple of days ago, a warehouse and logistics conference, and those guys are doing extremely well two ways. One, I mean, at least as long as the construction can go on. I mean, they're I think the guys with portfolios, some of their tenants are doing better than others, of course. But the guys just building warehouses and the guys working for you know, not only Amazon, but all the big e-commerce players are just needing more space, and they're gonna, you know, and so I think there's one thing as far as clients, which they're generally doing pretty well on. Of course, some of the retail clients are probably, you know, asking for some breaks on space, but no one needs less space. They may not be able to pay for it, but they still need it. You know, I think the same, I think there's you know, we've done a lot of these conferences already, and what I see, whether it's Andrew saying it or Lika or anyone, basically everyone is in almost the same boat. You know, it's retail is in serious pain. Obviously, travel and hospitality's you know, non-existent at the moment. And you know, I mean, with residential, it just comes, you know, I think it just comes down to you know, they're building them and probably nothing's really happened too much yet on it, but you know, it just comes back on how many, you know, how severe this virus ends up being. If you know, if there's really a huge number of, you know, deaths, you know, there's going to be a lot more, and unemployment, there's going to be a lot more residential available, but I think at lower prices even. But I think a lot of it just comes down to, you know, how long it drags out. And, you know, at the moment, no one's really seeing anyone, you know, anyone die. It's happening in hospitals, or it's happening in, you know, in people's homes, let's say even. So I think it's not, in a lot of cases, it hasn't hit a lot of people in reality. But I think everyone seems to be in the same boat. You know, it's just, you know, the retailers are in trouble. The restaurants are almost, you know, you can't even think about when they're going to open, or the hotels. So, yeah, I mean, the e-commerce guys, they've made a lot of money on sales, but they were also making a huge amount, or will be, on investment, because the investors are only, I mean, I'd say before this happened, investors were still looking at office, they were still looking at residential. I mean, not residential, we're not covering residential, but they were looking at office, they were looking at retail, and now they're not looking at any of that except logistics. So I would say the value of some of these logistics projects have really went up for the developers that are going to be looking to sell them in the, you know, I wouldn't say the near future, but in the, you know, kind of medium term, because that is all the investment people are really looking at the moment.
Thank you, Craig. And I also would like to ask Mateusz. Mateusz, please join us.
Of course. So when it comes to Poland, one more consensus: all the branches will suffer the coronavirus crisis, but mostly the retail, hospitality, and restaurants and so on. Fortunately, these days Poland is not as touristic as, for example, Georgia. So. Maybe it's not as tragic as in there. We can see that currently one of the most suffering branches is retail, because the last days at the beginning of April, our government issued a regulation that made that agreements between the parties, between the landlords and commercial tenants, are not more legally binding. To the end of epidemic outbreak, they are not parties of their agreement. After the epidemic outbreak will end, they have to extend their agreements on the same terms. But during the whole coronavirus outbreak, during the whole quarantine and lockdown, they have no rents when it comes to landlords. When it comes to housing sector, people always need houses, so it's not so tragic as in other branches. We are expecting some more safe people will act more safe. They are not so willing to invest their money in houses as before. So it could be some problems with investors, which was a huge part of Polish market. We are even estimating these days that according to the previous crisis in year 2008, because it's the only point of reference that we have, that even 1/3 of people could cancel their transactions on Polish market according to the force majeure, but still housing sector is in the best situation.
We already started with Mateusz adding some information as how
okay,
the government...
Can I add about housing market in Poland? I want to say that it's worth noting that the Polish developers have learned the lesson of the crisis of 2008, and we see the balance of supply and demand in the market for the last 5 years. Also, for several years, especially in Warsaw, Krakow, and Wrocław, demand exceeded supply, and now about 70% of apartments currently under construction have already been sold on the market.
Thank you. And
I would like as well. Yeah, you know, we are speaking from the perspective that financing part will be the same as it is. You know, right now we are struggling with what? Where every country struggles with liquidity crisis, and what we don't want to get is a capital crisis. What we have seen in what we saw in 2008. So I believe this is the main problem, at least for Estonia for sure. We have many discussions here that, okay, first of all, our bank system depends a lot on Finnish and Sweden bank systems, yes, because our main banks are subsidiaries of Swedish and Finnish banks. So what we don't want to see here, we don't want to see that the banks don't finance residential development. If there is a shift in financing and the terms of financing will be, let's say, worse than they are today, that will be a problem for residential as well. With commercial real estate, right now, yes, it's a liquidity crisis, but it's not a capital crisis yet. Another threat with commercial real estate is that, again, it's most probably depends country on each country separately, but for example, in our agreements, there is a term that if price of property is less than 30% when it was evaluated, when you get a loan, then bank can terminate the agreement. And what we see is that everybody hopes that it will not happen this way. For example, in 2008, the biggest banks had their own subsidiaries dealing with real estate. They acquired real estate as commercial, as residential, and starting from 2008 by 2013 or 12, they sell this real estate step by step. Of course, they said that it was done that not to not to ruin the market. And but in the end, everybody knows that this company gets a huge profit. So one threat, at least here in Estonia, is that there should not be change in ownership, and the banks should still continue to finance as the residential as commercial development. In commercial development, in retail and retail, of course, we see shifts, and offices. Yes, we're gonna see shifts in consumer behavior, and that's well, it depends on can you adopt or not.
Can Estonian government help with this, with some restrictions to banks as to the mortgage?
Well, it's rather how to say, rather interesting question, because I assume there is certain lobby that well, banks say right now that for them it's usual as business as usual, yes, and then they aim not to get any kind of property, but you never know. Okay. And again, there is a lobby from financial institutions in government for sure, but we're gonna see that.
I see. And the next question as to how government can help as already Mateusz says that there were some restrictions to the lease agreements so the government is just interrupting between such business relationships between landlords tenants. And what is the governmental policy in your countries as to how to help business? Maybe some helping with employees, with some wages, covering some part of wages. Maybe there is some help with tax vacation, I don't know. Because in Ukraine, we do not have much support from the government, but so I just wonder how in other countries. Are there any support?
Olga, in case of Georgia, Olga, in case of Georgia, most sensitive sectors were supported from government, and income and property taxes were postponed. Also, as tourism has suffered a lot, government decided to support mostly small and medium-sized hotels and to co-finance their interest expenses, banking interest expenses for 6 months. Also, we have support from City Hall, the touristic companies having their shops or small restaurants were exempted from tax payment if they had properties leased from government. Also, there are some good initiatives from banking sectors. 3 months repayment moratorium was introduced for citizens and business companies to support them in these hard times. And also these incentives are under elaboration. New incentives will be introduced soon, and the government is working really hard to soften the impact and mitigate somehow this really hard situation.
Sorry.
Would you like to add, Vladimir?
No.
Lika, would you like to add? Because I just
no, I already finished. That's all.
Okay, maybe I will speak about Estonia. Estonia government offers this incentives up to 9% of GDP altogether. Some incentives are connected with unemployment benefits. That for 2 months, government pays 70% of salary, but not more than, to my mind, it was 1,000 euros. And there are some cuts in that if you don't pay taxes, you don't pay any penalties. Again, it's for 2-3 months, and then you have this payment schedule. There are additional loans and warranties if you want to take a loan right now for development of your company or to finance if you have a problem with liquidity. There is a special government entity that deals with this kind of loans. And for construction area, it's right now it was told that there is something like 100 million euros will be added to the program of renovation of existing houses. I mean apartment houses, yeah. So in this respect, this is how they want to stimulate demand for construction works. And also there are talks about different big investments from the state, again, to support construction business.
Thank you. Michael, are there any Polish acts from government?
Yes, I think, you know, that everything started in Poland on the 4th of March. Basically, there was the first noted case of COVID, and then the government started to introduce some kind of special aid laws as of 8th of March, and basically they are in Parliament all the time. They are modified. There are tax exemptions, there are social aid exemptions, but recently, yesterday actually, the government presented the act on some kind of measures for the business. Basically, the Industrial Development Agency will be responsible for giving loans, or giving some kind of financial aids to businesses impacted in coronavirus pandemic, and the government estimates that it will cost in general, not only for the forthcoming months, about 100 billion Polish zlotys. So it's quite a lot. But it's going to help the business, especially small and medium enterprises, to go forward with the liquidity of within the forthcoming months and repayment of salaries. The problem is that the act consists of a number of articles. It has about 147 pages together with the justification of the act. So it's quite complex, and there are some voices from the business that it was not consulted properly with the business organizations. This is number one. This is too bureaucratic, and there caused a lot of problems of fulfilling all the forms and complex documents to get the loans. And another issue is that there will be a rule first time, first served. So basically the businesses needs to file quite rapidly for the aid from the government, because they may have problems with getting the money if there is no cash in the pool, in the aid pool. This is how it looks like, basically.
Thank you. Andrzej, do you know any governmental support deeds in the countries you're operating in? Are there any?
Well, so far it's limited. I think the government in Kazakhstan is super busy on making, the virus stop, and I think they're doing a very good job. And it seems like Kazakhstan might be one of the countries which comes out of it the fastest, in terms of stopping the quarantine and the virus. There are the business support is very limited. They're trying to support the poorest of the people. So basically, for low-income people, to provide some cash inputs. A little bit of Trumpish way of sending checks to the mailboxes type of thing. And of course there's instructions for the bank to do loan vacations and basically postponements of payments. But so far no organized effort that I know of has been put in for small and medium enterprises that I know yet. But this is also a country which doesn't talk too much to the public of what it's doing until it's out, right? So it might be coming in the future.
Okay, I see. And we have not so many time to our conference, and the main question, which is what is the main point of our meeting, is how will be the real estate after the quarantine? What changes how will the property owners and developers' strategies will change? Do they will make any conclusions of this situation? And Andrzej is already have been told us how will the residential probably change. Yes, that we will need more comfortable housing, I guess, right? And with balconies and all that stuff, yeah, when you couldn't work around. And I think that some of our speakers already told how we'll make some predictions as to the office market. How will the office will change? Yes, smaller, and maybe with another price, and maybe we do not need so many offices, because in Kiev for last 2 years we have seen that the office premises doubled in the size. So what are your predictions? What will be the real estate after the quarantine? And the main predictions, when it will be after April, May, maybe next year?
Olga, I think on the housing market in Poland, there are several reasons to believe that the housing market will go through a crisis with minimal losses, and the real estate market will become a stable haven for saving money. We have such beliefs. First of all, is that over the past months, the Central Bank of Poland has already twice reduced the bank rate from 1.5% to 0.5%. Deciding to give an investment impetus to the economy. This will fill the market with cheap money, and I think the printing machine money press was launched with maximum power. Deposit also rates decreased and approach after taxes to zero. And also, I want to say that over the past months, Polish zloty devaluated against the dollar and euro by an average of 8%. And as we know, during time of crisis, the devaluation of the national currency affects the increase in demand for international currencies, gold, but also for housing real estate. And developers will, on the developer market, housing market, we think that developers are returning to the normal cycle of apartment sales in the project from 6 months, like it was a few years ago, to 18 months.
Not very negative, I guess, very positive directions of thinking for Polish developers. Mateusz, maybe you can add what the Polish developers hoping for after the crisis.
I have raised my hand in question before because I wanted to add something, but maybe I try to connect it somehow. As Anton said, financial purpose is crucial these days because it affects the liquidity of enterprises. So nowadays, as association, we can say that that dialogue with banks is crucial. We can see that banks are more cautious about giving loans for developers and also for clients. So we should be in dialogue with banks. In Poland, they say that they are looking on every case individually. So developers should definitely focus on good communication, on giving them everything they want in terms of information. Also, when it comes to government, developers and association could be in dialogue with governments, because we can see, as Michał said, that our government is issuing new regulations to help the business, but from our point of view, it's not enough. We can see, according to some other European countries, that they are better in issuing some regulations connected to coronavirus outbreak. For example, in Lithuania, they implemented possibility of control on construction sites via video conferences. In Poland, there is no such a possibility because we were in some discussions with government and they rejected this idea. But we can see that possibility of control remotely on construction sites is for us crucial, because in terms of Polish regulations, bank can give a payment to developer only after control. So maybe it's another clue to move our work to work remotely. And when it comes to loans, once again, not in Poland, maybe because we have not such incentives and making our way easier by our governments with banks. But we can see, for example, in Germany that their government is mitigating some bottlenecks in terms of giving loans to developers and also for clients. Also, I can see in Czech Republic that they lowered their obligatory own contribution for clients from 20% to 10% of own contribution. So as maybe summarizing, dialogue with banks, dialogue with government, so simply dialogue is crucial these days.
And what are your predictions as to the end of quarantine?
So it's hard to predict because maybe in Ukraine you are more experienced in crisis.
We're in a constant crisis, so
so maybe it's easier for you. But so act normally as before. Maybe people will be more cautious. So maybe we should focus more on individual clients, not on investors, but another way. So maybe international funds buying the whole buildings is our next hope, maybe.
Can I add something?
From the crisis.
Sure.
I think what Volodymyr told me last week that the crisis in Chinese means two things. It means fear and means opportunity. I think that there is a huge opportunity to buy low at the moment, yes? Because sector, you can buy hotels for the 30% lower price than it was before. So what it means, if you have cash, you always earn on crisis, yes? It means that there is a lesson for businesses that you don't need to live the life. You need to save some money for the period of crisis, because it may come like inevitably like COVID-19. So basically, there are companies, there are investment funds that are using the crisis to build up their portfolio, because you can buy low. It means that you can buy the property, the entire buildings, you can buy hotels, you can buy whatever you want, because there is a crisis. So it means that some kind of businesses needs money, and they are selling, and they are willing to sell low than it was the market price before. So I think that there is a huge opportunity for international investments in the region to just travel with investment and with the money actually at the end of the day, and invest lower than it was before. So this is the advantage.
Will be opened at the end of lockdown. We can predict it that in Poland will be a lot of international investment projects.
In Poland, you're having great global investors all the time. So just like some small break for you, I guess.
Olga, I will add a couple of words. So as we see and we expect and we wish, real estate in long term will be as affected as it happened to stock exchange market. So experts say that real estate is real investment. So let's hope that this is temporary challenge that we're facing. So regarding what landlords and real estate leaders will do after the crisis, post-crisis period, is that they will reevaluate their assets and they will think ahead how to use their assets in an effective way, what to do with their capital they have. So your question was about office centers, how the situation COVID virus will impact our behavior towards office market. So what we see from today's perspective is that there will be demand for smaller office spaces, and some of the companies will ask their employees to work remotely to make cost-effective decisions. So this is what we see from today's perspective. What we also see that urbanism is changing. So the main focus will be on well-being and safety of people. The role of technology, prop tech and medical tech will increase, and developers and architects will think ahead how to integrate safety, technological appliances and solutions in buildings, in public areas, because we need to be prepared in future for such case, for such obstacles. Hope that it will not happen again, but we need to keep resilience in such times. And the final remark that we have is to think innovative and to think about new technologies and to stay positive and adapt to the changes.
I agree with Lika, and now I think we can say with confidence that the market housing market, for example, go even deeper into digital customer service by sales department after removing the restriction will be as far as possible carried out remotely and online. Already developers in Poland, in Ukraine, introduced the possibility of consultation with video communication. The opportunity for presenting real estate remotely will be expanded. We think video presentation of apartment, virtual tours of apartments, etc.
How about to buy apartments online?
For example, some of Polish developers add a possibility with electronic signature, for example. And also we think it can be predicted the customers will also pay attention to the housing projects which have smart solution and mobile application. And we think that the next decade technological advanced electronic home automation system called smart homes today, including sensors, indicators, and various of control devices will be common for residential complexes. With their help, thanks to the remote control of the application smartphone, you can program and control the room temperature, lighter, and guarantee significantly lower bills for media, even at a 30% per year. We, with our partners from Sweetsoft in Ukraine, noticed now increase in requests in Ukraine and in Poland for develop such mobile application and smart solution. I want to know we developed such solution for one of the biggest developer in Ukraine, Can Development, for the residential complexes. And we think that a lot of complexes will introduce such solutions for the complexes.
I see that we also have some, Mateusz and Andrzej wanted to add. Please join in.
Only shortly, sorry. So according to Vladimir, yes, it is possible to sign some agreements via internet, but still there is no such a possibility to sign final agreement between developer and client remotely. You have to go to the office to sign it in the presence of notary. So maybe this is one more lesson for you to push on your government to issue such a regulations for the possibility to sign the agreements with developers remotely, because in Poland there is such a big problem, and our Ministry of Health hasn't given any clear clarification if it's possible to leave your home to go to the notary office to sign a contract, and this is quite a huge problem for developers, I think.
Okay, about Estonia.
Sorry, Anton, sorry, we have the raising hand from Andrzej, and then I will we will go to. Yep.
Sorry, okay. I'll be real quick. I don't think the real estate business as a whole is under at risk here, right? Some segments of it are going to adapt, like commercial and travel. Residential, we have to also look, but I think we're going to look at the global change if our governments are smart about zoning issues, right? One of the big problems right here is how cluttered we have become as cities. Right, and the travel patterns and everything like it makes us exposed to threats like that. I think on a global level we're going to see a change of those zoning regulations. For example, I would see measures in the future that governments will be able to seal off parts of city. Right, there's no points of closing down a metropolitan area like New York. Right, we should be able to isolate parts of it and stuff like that. So I think the cities will change after this majorly, and the developers will need to support that. To create self-sustaining, basically new developments, right, which can be sustained as a whole without people traveling too much and so on. I think a lot of those changes will come, and it would be good if our industry would be part of that, because something has to change, right? Otherwise, we just keep having this, every year or two until one deadly one comes, actually deadly one, right? So I think that will have to change in a long perspective.
Thank you, Anton.
So
you're welcome.
Estonia, yes, thank you. About Estonia, the future is now. Starting from Monday, we can sign all the notarized agreements digitally. I mean, digitally, you don't have to go to a notary place. So it means that in Estonian real estate, on Monday was a gigantic shift how you make the business. Now you don't have to go to notary place. You can book online. You can see online. You can sign a final agreement online. I think that it will come someday that you don't even have to pass the keys physically. Yes. So in this respect, how everything is changing. First of all, very quick. We see changes in behavior. They say that you need to have 21 days to have a new habit, or to change an old one. And if everybody looks into the mirror, they understand what habit already changed. how you, gonna consume real estate and how you're gonna consume other services. So it's, to my mind, in the simplest thing, think how to think further, you know. And what Lika mentioned about PropTech, for sure, that PropTech will be very essential. And well, and another essential thing is that to be flexible and innovative. So if somebody wants to find out more about how our notaries deals with these new rules that you can sign digitally, etc., so you can find me in LinkedIn or Facebook. I will be happy to speak about that.
Thank you, Anton. Quite clear that we should, we already changed, and we have quarantine more than 21 days already. Time for a new habit to change our way of living.
Yeah.
We have also one poll to ask all of our guests. There are 37 of us. So please answer some questions. Vote, everybody has the possibility to vote. Do you see it already on your screens?
Yes.
Have you seen it? Can you vote? Yes. And all of our participants have the possibility to vote. It's pretty easy to do. Okay. So the pictures we see it that residential and warehouse will survive. Yes. Okay, we'll have 20 seconds to vote. Please, all our guests, just make your voting. Go faster, please, with voting. Just push the button of the segment you see that the most suffering. Okay, retail. Oh, someone don't believe in residential. I hope that I think that these people are from Ukraine, because we really find that even residential Ukraine will be not so lucky this time. People just do not have money and just don't know what will be the next step. And we are not in Estonia to sign contract by internet.
Not yet.
Not yet, yes, not yet. Okay, we will end this polling, or someone is voting still. We are pressed for time, so we will end this polling, but I think that the results are speaking for themselves. Okay, share results. Okay, and good. Thank you for voting. And one last question, just to finish, to summarize our meeting. I really hope that everything will end this spring and shortly for all of our countries, in Poland, in Georgia, in Estonia, in Kazakhstan, when they are doing pretty nice job, actually. If you are looking on the screens with this country, people just who are suffering, that Kazakhstan is doing pretty well. And I wish you good luck in your business. And I just propose some my proposition to meet after the quarantine and to check with all our feelings. And I think that even in a month or two, we will see some changes even from today, because it's changing so fastly that we are just couldn't cope with it. And I think that this quarantine, all the predictions that you made about offices, about residential, the results will be seen in a year or two, because we are working in real estate, and this is a economy that couldn't change so fast. Yes. And some summarizing words from each of our speaker. And please, Vladimir, Mateusz, Andrzej, Anton, say some words to our guests who are listening to us.
Guys, I can say sorry. I spent my whole life on emerging markets, different of them. This is a crisis, not the first one, not the last one.
Not the
I
last
know
one.
it seems scary. All right, I think the assumptions under which we're living is, yes, we gotta first, contain, adapt, survive, and look for opportunities. For us personally, the last 2 weeks was, adapt and survive. Now we're already, change the mindset and look for opportunities. And I think if we do that all together as an industry, this might be actually a good thing, right? A lot of things are changing also for the better. And I wish you all to, have that mindset as soon as possible, and to, let's talk as a community more together. We can come up with better solutions, I'm sure. So looking forward to that.
It's so easy right now, yes?
No.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. Like, just turn on the news and,
Yeah.
think for your own, I think, is the best solution here.
Yeah. Thank you. Mateusz?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mateusz, Anton, who is speaking.
Well, I totally agree with Andrew that this is not the first one, or the last one. All the crises have, how to say, are different, but there is one similar thing between the crises, that they all end some moment, yeah? So again, as I started, let's fasten the seatbelt and enjoy the ride,
Thank you. Vika?
So my suggestion is, let's stay positive and optimistic, and use this period to plan ahead, to have contingency plan for post-crisis period, to accelerate dialogue, knowledge sharing, and expertise sharing, which we're doing this today, and this is very good initiative. And to hope that real estate is hope, and await that real estate is real investment. So let's stay positive.
Thank you. Mateusz?
So nothing more to add. Let's stay positive, but not, of course, in coronavirus tests. Remember about dialogues, cooperations, adapt and survive. Thank you.
Vladimir?
I also think that we should be more optimistic and positive, and we need to use this time to changes what are in our lives. We should use them now more effective.
Michal? Michal, will you add?
I'm here. Yeah. I think we have to stay positive, and I think we have to look for opportunities, because it's a time of the crisis, and there are opportunities, and you have to be commercially brave to use these opportunities sometimes. Yes, you have to. If you've got an opportunity to buy low and develop, go forward with this. And this is my advice. Yes, for international investors and for local investors. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good quarantine with possibility to walk around.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you, Olga.
See you, hoping offline.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye to everybody.
Bye.